Today I'm gonna quickly show you how I made this savory braised beef with mashed potatoes. As usual, I'm starting with chopping my veggies. Today I'm using a whole sweet onion and chopping that into smaller pieces, and in this case the size doesn't really matter. And I follow that with chopping a few carrots about an inch or so long so they can fully cook and be as tender as possible. When done, I set that aside in a bowl with the sweet onions. The next thing I worked on was chopping my red potatoes for the garlic roasted mashed potatoes that I would make to go with the braised beef. And I don't really know why, but for some reason I decided to make my mashed potatoes using the oven instead of the stovetop today, so that's why I'm chopping these into such small pieces. And for this meal, I'm using lean beef stew meat. I start by adding some olive oil to a deep pot so I can quickly sear the beef. Once the oil is hot enough, I add in the meat and then I season that directly in the pot with salt and pepper. Everything was super coated with the seasoning before I flip the pieces around so every side could get a really good sear. When you're done, your beef should look something like this with some really good color, and then you'll remove all of it from the pot and start on your sauce. I added butter to the same pot, melting it all before adding in my onions, carrots, and Haitian epis. I mixed everything before mincing some garlic directly into the pot as well. After about 5 minutes of the veggies cooking and getting some really good flavor, I added in my beef broth and seasoned the whole mixture really well. Since I wasn't measuring anything, I did a taste test and added more seasoning that I thought the recipe needed, and I definitely recommend you doing the same because my exact measurements wouldn't apply to your recipe if you were to use more or less beef. And this is what the broth looked like before I covered it and let it come to a boil before adding my beef back in with some tomato paste. And since I forgot to preheat my oven, I let this simmer on the stovetop for a few minutes on low heat while waiting for the oven to prep. And while that was happening, I started on my roasted garlic mashed potatoes. I transferred the sliced potatoes from earlier to a baking dish, drizzled olive oil on top, and seasoned with salt and pepper, making sure to give it a good shake so the seasoning can be well spread out. When I was satisfied with the potatoes and what they looked like, I transferred that to my oven, then prepped my garlic by cutting the top of the garlic clove, drizzling olive oil on it, and adding a pinch of salt, black pepper, and paprika. I wrapped that in aluminum foil and put it in the oven as well as the beef. After about 40 minutes or so, my potatoes were done, so I mashed them directly in the dish. Then I added in my roasted garlic. I almost burned my fingers, so I recommend you be extra careful with this step. Then I mashed them directly in the baking dish as well. When I was satisfied with the texture, I added in cream cheese, coconut milk, and salted butter. I mashed that once more to mix everything together really well. And that was it for the roasted garlic mashed potatoes. After another hour, my braised beef was ready, so I took it out the oven and served myself some yummy food. The mashed potatoes were first, and then I topped it with the braised beef, making sure to get some of the sauce so it could be as flavorful as possible. Then I cut a few pieces of green onions on top to add an extra layer of spice and to make the whole thing look extra pretty. I've kind of been tasting this all throughout, so I know it tastes good, but first bite on camera for y'all. The potatoes are scrumptious, and that sauce is everything. You guys don't know how tender this beef is. Look at that. It just breaks apart with the fork. I'm telling you, you need to make this today, if not tomorrow. I'm gonna give you some time to go and get the ingredients, of course, but this is such a comfort meal. So good. See you in the next video.